Yep, it's a 2023 Bloodborne video and a combat analysis video of an 8-year-old video game. But, believe it or not, this game still has some tricks to it. I say that not as if I'm discovering this, but more so that I haven't seen it in any videos. Nor have I really seen anyone use this in game, at least not on purpose, and that's gonna make sense in a bit. But since I haven't seen anyone talk about this, I feel pretty confident in saying I don't think anyone watching now will be able to guess what the mechanic is. So if you want to prove me wrong, try and guess now, before watching any further. In order to explain why this tiny aspect of a mechanic is a big deal, I need to talk about the big mechanic first, which is stamina. Now I know everyone watching this is gonna roll their eyes and go, I know what stamina is. And yeah, pretty much everyone watching this is gonna know what stamina is and how it works. But I more so just want to talk about it as a mechanic conceptually and how it affects gameplay. Alright, so stamina. It's a really simple management system and has been a staple for From Software since Demon's Souls. And it's found its way into every quote-unquote Soulsborne game ever since. Yeah, okay, maybe not Sekiro, but it's not really a Soulsborne. I love the game by the way, so just put down your pitchforks and katanas, please. The management aspect of stamina comes in once you actually start using the resource. It's used through attacking, sprinting and dodging. Doing so will take away a chunk of the bar. That is not all it does though. It will also pause the regen of the stamina once you've used some. Even actions that don't cost any stamina can pause the bar, like shooting for example. Or being stuck in an animation like visceral attacks. And managing your stamina has always played a big role when it comes to separating experienced players from beginners. Since once you're out of stamina, you're usually with an empty bar, you're limited to two options. Either you back up, waiting for your stamina to recover, just hoping nothing hits you, or you stand still and something does hit you. And this is the case for pretty much every single Souls game. And I have a problem with that. Dealing with stamina is kind of getting old.
You're wasting my time.
Now, before you burn me at the stake, let me try to explain myself. The reason for having a stamina system is very valid. It's not only there to limit the player's power, it's also there for engaging gameplay and having something to think about during combat. And of course, like any good management system, it rewards good play and punishes bad play. Honestly, I think it's a big part of why Soulsborne became so popular in the first place. So then, why did I kinda dunk on stamina? Well, it comes down to the two options I spoke about earlier. What you do when you have no stamina, and what you do when you're waiting for stamina to recover. Since having no stamina is so limiting, it basically makes it the name of the game. To just never run out of stamina, and it becomes a bit stale. I want to make it clear that it's not my issue that stamina is a thing, and it's not my issue that you have to worry about stamina. It's more so that it feels a little bit one-dimensional. I almost hesitate to say it, but the games feel a little bit turn-based. Here's pretty much how your average person would play Bloodborne, or any other Souls game for that matter. You go to attack, usually the R1, and you see if the target can get stun locked or not. If it gets stunned, you keep mashing R1 until you're out of stamina. Then you back up, wait for your stamina to refill, and you're back in. Even if the target doesn't stagger easily, you'll do your attack, you'll dodge theirs, you'll do your attack, and you'll keep doing this until you're out of stamina, at which point you'll have to withdraw. Even if in your case you don't have to roll away, you can just stand next to them, you'll still just have to stand there until you have some stamina. Here's a very clear example. I can say with almost complete certainty that we've all found ourselves in this situation before. And this goes for every single Souls game. So I just spent all of my remaining stamina on killing this one enemy, thinking it was the last one that was attacking me at the time. Lo and behold, there was another. This leaves me with option 2. Getting hit in the face. And while technically the fault lies with me, the player, it still doesn't really feel that way. It's just not really a satisfying outcome. And when the stamina system was new, I had no problems with it. I still don't really have a problem with it, but it is starting to get there. With new releases, things have changed and evolved, though many things have also stayed the same, stamina being one of those things. And while From Software seem kind of formulaic sometimes, they've never really been afraid of experimenting with existing systems, such as smithing, weapon upgrades, and level design. And one of the more notable and more relevant for this video, the magic system. As it's a player-restricting management system, it bears quite a few similarities to stamina. And so I thought it might be a good idea to revisit the magic system real quick to see how they tend to change things like this. And to kind of remind ourselves that they really aren't afraid to just completely jumble things around. I want to preface this whole segment by just saying that I know that some things appeared in Kingsfield, but let's just start with Demon's Souls for simplicity's sake, and honestly I don't know much about Starfield? Oh my god, what the fuck just happened to my brain? Okay, so now that Todd has blessed me with some insight, let's keep going. Kicking things off with Demon's Souls, we have the classic mana bar. So long as you got some blue juice in that bar, you're able to cast as many spells as you desire.
Come on, you idiots! Bloody simpleton!
And refilling this blue portion is as easy as just using some consumables. These consumables can be stacked quite high in your inventory, and there's no limit to just chugging them and spamming spells. And this led to not the most balanced or intricate magic system, but it kinda worked, I guess. In Dark Souls 1, we do things quite different. In the absence of a fancy blue bar, we're now down to simple numbers. This led to a system where you kinda had to think a little bit more about when you use the spell, and whether or not it's worth using the spell on said enemy. And even though you could use consumables that replenished some of your spellcasts, they weren't really easy to come by, or all too abundant to the point where they felt like they really affected the core game. While it may seem similar to move from a blue bar to the limited cast numbers, they are quite different. While they both determine how many spells you can cast, they do so in slightly different ways. The blue bar is a lot more free-form and allows you to choose how you divide your spells up, whereas distributing numbers of cast to specific spells leads to a more rigid system. The game has already decided how many of those spells you get to cast, regardless of your unique selection of spells that you have chosen. And yes, technically you could equip multiple copies of the same spell, but this is more of a New Game Plus thing. Unless we're talking very basic starter spells, which you could buy easily. Skipping ahead to Dark Souls 3, we're back with this blue bar, which might make you think that it's just Demon's Souls all over again, right? Well, with the Estus Flask being introduced in Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 3 made a Estus Flask, but it's now blue. And this seemingly simple change actually marries the previous systems. The combination of a Ashen Estus Flask with limited uses and the return of the focus bar means that you are back to being free with how many of each spell you cast, while still being limited to how many spells you can cast in total. Tying things back to stamina here, we see another change that they made in Dark Souls 3. Me from the future here, quick correction, it was actually Dark Souls 2 that introduced this. Casting spells now uses and pauses stamina. This is one of the few changes that stamina has seen, but there is another slightly more subtle change. With Bloodborne and subsequent releases, the games have been just increasing in intensity when it comes to the boss fights, how fast they are and how much is going on. And I think as a result of this, From Software found themselves in a situation where they had to give the players more power in order to be able to handle these kinds of new crazy bosses. And this, I think, led to stamina being a lot more abundant, and specifically for rolls, you can now roll 15 million times in a row very quickly. And this is pretty much a complete summary of all the love and change that stamina has seen. Now compare this to the magic system or to the health system, and it's just kinda sad. So on that note, let's get back to Bloodborne and think about what changed here. This game is supposed to be all about the aggression, right? I mean, they encourage you through this new rally system where you regain HP through combat, which is massive, and the weapon transformations, while basically just to any from other games you can do it while attacking. Also, you don't have to leave combat. And it really is one of those things that makes Bloodborne very special. Yet you have this stamina system that's telling you otherwise. But Bloodborne is also an older game, and so it has some leftover things that were in, say, Dark Souls 1, that later got redacted in Dark Souls 3 and beyond. It's one of those leftover things that I'm interested in. It's extremely likely that this is just an oversight by the developers, and it means nothing for the game's intended way of playing. And even so, it's such a big part of how I enjoy Bloodborne now. So, what exactly makes Bloodborne so special, and how does this tie into stamina? Remember those two options, with either getting smashed in the face or standing around waiting for stamina? Well, Bloodborne is a little spicy. You see, here in Yharnam we have a third option. And while technically I think these options do exist in Dark Souls 1 and Demon Souls, I don't think it exists in 2. Bloodborne makes it work. Alright, I think I blue-balled you just enough.
Oh, I know very well how the secrets beckon so sweetly.
Some actions have no effect on stamina.
Like these.
So why is this a big deal? Let's return to the snake boy on the bridge and see if he can't help us understand a bit better. I start off with the usual R1 into the stagger confirmation, and then I just keep doing R1s until I have enough stamina for one more attack. The last attack I do is a de-transform attack, which is a very slow and slightly more damaging move. This would usually be very risky and just leave you open with 0 stamina, but this is when I use the Augur of Ebrietas. The fucking snail, okay? And would you look at that? The stamina is back, and it keeps regenning even though I'm using an ability. And this completely changes how I feel about stamina. It just feels so good to use stamina this way. And it's not just limited to small regular enemies either. Oh no, it is useful on all kinds of bosses, even the tougher ones. And even though this could be considered an exploit by some, it still gives a lot more depth to stamina. It makes it a system that's even more engaging, and something you always think about. Not only are you managing stamina like you normally do, but now you have more to keep in mind. Here's an example. You're in a fight, and you find yourself having a third of a bar left. You dodge a flurry of attacks. This is normally when you have an opportunity to attack or do something else. Should you choose to keep your stamina regenning, this would normally mean you would just stare at the boss for a while. And this makes for kind of shit gameplay, to be honest, because you're both just staring at each other doing nothing. Well, now you have something more to think about. You have other actions to fall back on while your stamina is regenerating. And those different actions have different drawbacks. So, say you want to go for an Augur of Ebrietas, whatever. You'll want to consider how long that attack takes to come out, and whether or not you should risk trying to pair with it. Or go for something lower risk, like throwing out your flame sprayer, for example. This can make for some on-the-fly decision making, but it also has a risk to it, so it feels really good when you make the right choice. Now, it's not perfect, and switching between these different actions like flame sprayer or different hunter tools isn't very fluid, though it makes perfect sense, since these actions weren't intended to be used this way. Either way, this illuminates a problem that I've had with these games that I didn't even know I had. This is gonna sound weird, but bear with me here. Remember how I said, like any good management system, stamina rewards good play and punishes bad play? Well, in a runabout strange way, it's actually the opposite. The stamina system actually rewards bad play and punishes good play. Alright, let me try to explain this. To try and make sense of this, and to make my point, I kinda need to talk a little bit about what a reward even means in this case. So in this fantastic medium that we call video games, a reward doesn't necessarily have to mean a win condition or something that gives the player power. Rather, the best kind of reward in a video game is the one that says to the player, alright, now you get to do the satisfying thing. Imagine we remove the visceral attack or riposte portion of a parry, resulting in a parry that deals the damage immediately and automatically just as you parry them. However, now you don't get the satisfying when you get up to them and you get to shove your goddamn sword. This is a reward in a game that truly feels like a reward, something that makes the player engaged and feel like, okay, I did something here. You can make a similar example with the Bloodborne rally system. In most games and in most Souls-likes, taking damage is strictly a penalty. And in Bloodborne, taking damage on paper is strictly a penalty as well. You never theoretically want to take damage, there's no upside to doing so. Or is there?
Please, God! Oh, God!
I would argue there kind of is. Taking damage means that the rally system is in play. Now there's a risk your health is low, however there's also the possibility of a reward that feels satisfying. If the player is able, they can get back into the fight and heal up, and this feels great. Were you to analyze the situation, it's only a penalty. You took damage, you were able to recover almost all of it or some of it, and you're now worse off, or at the very best you're equal to where you started. That's an example of a penalty that feels like a reward. And strangely enough, on the other side, there's rewards that almost strike you as punishments. Like, say you've been fighting through this really complex area that is completely optional, and then at the very end, your reward, a throwing dagger. And you're like, okay, well, technically this is a reward, but you get the point. Okay, let's tie this back into stamina. So, paradoxically, I said that stamina punishes good play and rewards bad play. Here's what I mean. Say you've been fighting a boss and you're just absolutely smacking it around. And now you find yourself low on stamina because you've been using it for dodging and smacking it. This results in a lull in the combat where nothing is really happening. The player has no choice but to wait for the bar to fill up. And the boss is either far away or it just attacked and so it's doing nothing. This just ends up being the lamest Mexican standoff. This is what I mean when I say that good gameplay is getting punished. On paper you are winning and you're doing great. But then the downtime of the stamina feels kind of empty and lackluster. Now let's look at the opposite situation. This time, the boss is absolutely wiping the floor with you, and you're just panic rolling all over town. And now, once again, you find yourself low on stamina. Except this time, the stamina system says to you, okay, alright, you got smacked around and you have no stamina left, but you know what? The boss isn't gonna attack for a while because you just got smacked. And so just take a swig, heal yourself, or stab yourself in the leg, you know? And now you get this freebie of just healing while your stamina is recovering. This keeps the player engaged and gives them something to think about and to do while their stamina is empty. This time, on paper, this is a bad situation. You got hit, and so your health is lower and now you have one less healing item, or several. However, it feels good to be able to come to safety and fill up your health bar. This helps alleviate not only how bad it feels to get hit, but it also removes the feeling of downtime with the stamina system. And that's what I mean when I say that it rewards bad play. And I'm in no way trying to trash on this, I think it's a really good thing. However, there is no such reward for doing good in a fight. And I'm not advocating for this for the simple act of more power for the player. It's more so that I would like to see more layers to the stamina system. Something that makes it even more satisfying when you're doing well in a fight. And like the best of any management system, this would mean that it isn't something that a new player has to think about, but it's something that's there for when they're ready. In a sense, this is similar to how parrying is handled. Hold on, actually let's rewind that. This scenario right here is a great example of what I'm talking about. I just finished a strong heavy attack, and it left me with absolutely no stamina left. The enemy, however, is staggered, so he can't do anything either. So reacting accordingly, I swap over to my augers. This makes it possible for me to take advantage of the staggered status of my enemy, in addition to keeping my stamina going. Making these kinds of decisions mid-fight are what makes it really interesting. What I'm trying to say is that it would be really nice to have more options as the player. To make the game just a little bit more rock paper scissors, instead of just rocks and papers. Both Bloodborne and Sekiro actually addressed this issue, but with health. Sekiro with the posture system, essentially giving the enemies 2 HP bars that allow for different ways of lowering the HP before you kill the enemy. And Bloodborne, of course, with the rally system, allowing you to choose how you refill your HP based on the situation you're in. If you're in control of the situation, you go back in with the rally system and refill your HP. If things are going crazy and you might die, you back out and you heal normally. I would like to see the same duality for stamina, allowing for more risky ways of refilling your bar and keeping up your aggression. Of course, there still has to be downsides to having low stamina, otherwise there's no point in keeping the system at all. This is partially why I like this exploit, if you want to call it that. Because the hunter tools are so situational and usually very risky to use mid-fight, it actually balances out quite nicely. But if I were to make a wish list of a future stamina system, it would look a little bit like this. The green portion of the bar is still used for attacking, sprinting and dodging, like it is now. But as the bar drains from right to left, the portion that usually is an empty bar could now be a different color of the stamina. And this could be a separate resource used for specific actions. Like a special kind of parry that's only available when the green portion of the bar is very low. This would make stamina a lot more fun to manage. You'd be able to think of when you run low on stamina and why you do it, instead of just R1 mashing until you're out of stamina and then waiting. Perhaps now you would have more of a reason to use big, slow moves. Things that are risky but leave you with low stamina, which can be beneficial if used right. Of course, with low stamina you wouldn't be able to R1 spam or dodge or do anything else that uses normal stamina. Not only does this give a reason to use the green portion of the bar and the empty portion, but it also means that you have a reason to use the pausing aspect of stamina, so you can keep your stamina somewhere in the middle by constantly using just a bit of it. This is just some ideas of how you could change the stamina system and make it a lot more interesting. And the exact way that this is supposed to be solved or handled, I can't really say. But what I can say is that I really want to see something similar, because this has really made Bloodborne a lot more fun for me. And to finally see stamina getting some love and see it evolve. This video started as something simple. I was just gonna show you this goofy trick with stamina and how much fun it was. But then it just spiraled into this whole mess of me talking about stamina as a concept, and I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope it made you think about stamina just a bit different. Oh man, I don't even know how many times I've said stamina in this video. It's gotta be like 552. Anyways, this was my first video that wasn't just a terrible meme video with trash content, to be honest. And it's real awkward just talking to a computer with no one around me, so I apologize if I sound a bit, I don't know, like I'm not sure what the fuck I'm doing. I will not, however, apologize for my terrible memes. I stand by them. I do have an idea for a second video, so depending on how this video does and if people are interested, here's a hint. Thank you for watching, and thanks for your time.